this is a video on trig functions. Now, you really need to understand trig functions, and of the things that you need to memorize in the class, this is probably one of the more important ones. You need to understand how, particularly, right triangles work. So, the phrase that I like to use is SOHCAHTOA. Sine, cosine, and tangent, right? That's what the three letters. SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. SOHCAHTOA. Sine, and I'm just going to make up an angle here, theta, equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. Cosine of an angle equals the adjacent angle over the hypotenuse. And the tangent of an angle equals opposite over adjacent. So let's take this triangle here, right? One thing you need to know is the Pythagorean theorem. So Pythagorean theorem tells you that the two legs of the triangle, if you square them, you get the square of the hypotenuse. So you end up getting, in this case, b squared plus c squared equals a squared. That's the Pythagorean theorem. And the trig functions. So if you know some of this stuff, basically once you start learning some of the angles or the length of the different sides, you can get all the other ones. So I'm going to call this angle theta right there. If that's angle theta, that means the sine of theta, the sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So its opposite side is b, and the hypotenuse is a. So the sine of theta is equal to b divided by a. Right? Cosine of theta. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So the cosine of theta is equal to c divided by a. And because I'm running out of space, I'll put it up here. The tangent of theta is equal to opposite over adjacent. So opposite is b, adjacent c. It's not the hypotenuse, it's the side next to it that's not the hypotenuse. So b divided by c. Sine, cosine, tangent, right? And we also know that, for example, b squared plus c squared equals a squared. We can make up another angle here. Let's say we're looking at this angle instead. I'm just going to call this angle phi. We can use the same laws to apply to this. So phi, like the sine of phi, is the opposite of this angle divided by the hypotenuse. So the sine of phi is equal to c divided by a. Cosine of phi is the adjacent divided by that, so b divided by a. And tangent of phi is just the opposite over the adjacent, so just b divided by c. Once you start figuring out some of these, you can figure out the rest of them. So, and we'll find that we're going to use these a lot, especially as we do vectors. So let's say, for example, that we have a certain angle. I'm going to just make something up here. So let's say that angle theta is 30 degrees, right? And we know that A is 10 meters. So the question becomes, what's the length of side C? Now it doesn't have to be meters, this could be force. We could have a force in the direction of A, and then C would be a component of the force. You're going to learn about that in vectors. Very important. So C is just going to be side A times cosine of the angle. Right? So if we know and I can show this to you. So we know that the cosine of the angle, cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. So cosine of phi is just equal to c divided by a. And if you multiply both sides by a, you end up getting c divided by a times a, so that's just equal to c. So if you want to find the length of side c, just a cosine theta. So it ends up being 10 times cosine of 30 degrees, 10 meters. And that gets you an answer of about 8.66 meters. You could do the same for B too. And this is something that's good to memorize. So let's say you know the hypotenuse and the angle. All you need to do is multiply the hypotenuse by the sine for side B or the cosine for side C. So cosine, since that's the adjacent side, you're going to use the cosine. So it's going to be the hypotenuse times the cosine of the angle between them. In side B, since it's the sine, since it's the opposite, so it's going to be the hypotenuse times the sine of the angle. So in this case, side B is going to be A times sine of theta, or 10 meters times sine of 30 degrees, which just works out to be 5 meters. When you're working through problems, I suggest you box the answers as well. It makes it easier for me to understand. So these are trig functions. You'll see them in your book as well. Make sure to refer to your book if you ever have questions. As I said, very important to understand because we're going to be doing a lot of vectors, and vectors are forces and other things at angles. So you need to find all different sides of the triangle, or find the angles, for example. So if you want to, let's say you want to find angle theta and you know any of the other sides, you can say cosine of theta is equal to c over a, right? Sine of theta is equal to b over a, and tangent of theta is equal to b over c. So if you want to find your angle theta, theta is just the inverse cosine of c over a. And you can do this with your calculator. Not so easy to do in your head. Theta in this case is just the inverse sine, or the arc sine, of b divided by a. And theta here is just the inverse tangent of b divided by c. And if you got all three sides, you can actually try all three different equations, and you find out that they work out to be the same angle. So feel free to try this out on your own. But again, it all stems from those SOHCAHTOA. So if you understand SOHCAHTOA, you can figure out all of this stuff. You don't have to memorize these. Just know the SOHCAHTOA rules. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. You get those, you get everything else. That's the end of this video. Thank you.